to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jim Brennan. Mr. Brennan. Dr. Brennan? No, with the math teacher at high school. Jim Brennan.
Mr. Chairman, I could make a moment of silence for Jim Brennan, Woburn High School educator, passed away recently. Thanks for the reminder, Dr. Wells. May he rest in peace. Thank you. What one was that? Not dog.
All right, we'll have the superintendent do the roll call, please.
Ms. Chisholm.
Oh, that's probably why.
Yes.
Ms. Cormier.
Present.
Ms. Crowley.
Present.
Mr. Lipset.
Present.
Mr. Morenon.
Present.
Dr. Wells.
Present.
Mr. Kissel.
Here. Approval of minutes from 10/23/23.
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There you have it. Public comment. Do we have anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the school committee? Any others? Chuck's not here, is he? Seeing none, move on. I don't know if he's, is Charles Viola around? Okay, I didn't know, sometimes he sits over there. All right, move on to student representative is not here as well. Moving right along. Reports and presentations of the superintendent and staff. Starting with the JFK Improvement Plan, John F. Kennedy Middle School Improvement Plan. Principal Carl Nelson, please.
Carl's been the principal at the Kennedy since Kennedy was president.
Been a few years.
So he doesn't need any introduction. We are having slight technical difficulties, so the committee does have a hard copy of your presentation.
Let's go to the goal and then go from there. Is that all right?
Sure.
Thank you.
So the first goal, to improve the reading scores of the school, we're going to use STAR assessment, something that Tom and I talked about when we were here a few weeks ago. And the goal is to increase the scores by an average of 15%, and this will be used to identify students who need intervention. So we've already given the scores for the test the first time. We've identified students who need the intervention. We've already started working with our reading specialists. We've actually had kids retest, and some of the kids have already met their benchmark. They're no longer meeting with the reading specialist. So successful so far, and that will continue throughout the year. And then goal number 2 is the incorporating more after-school activities. So that's actually up and running, where we have a whole bunch of activities that have been going on for about 5 weeks now. We have a cooking class, we have a chess club, we have robotics, we have weightlifting, bracelet making, basketball, and a spectrum club all going on after school. So our goal is really to increase that, and then we'll actually add some more for the spring. And what we did is we reached out to the students to see what their interests were, and we got some teachers to run those activities. So that's goal number 2. Goal number 3, in order to increase MCAS scores, we're going to look at decreasing the number of students who are chronically absent by 10%. And right now, last year, our numbers were at 18.2% chronically absent. So what we do is we actually have an attendance committee, and we look at the attendance. We just sent out letters the other day to those students that we're already worried about for this year. And it's just a matter of meeting with the families and looking to see if there's any way we can assist them and how do we get those kids into the building. So I looked at our data as of, I think it was yesterday that we looked at it, and chronically absent was at 15%. So it's coming down already, but it's really, really important. And it's a correlation. You see the kids who are not in school, they're not going to do well on the MCAS. And then the last goal, couple of ways of having ML students more involved within the school community. So this is really an important one, getting more and more ML students. And so what we do is we have our language acquisition team. We actually just met today, and we look at ways that we can make the students feel more welcome coming into the school. So some of the things that we've already done this year is we have an ML buddy system, and then we hook them up with other students who are currently with us that speak their language. And they have gatherings throughout the year, and we have probably about 40 students involved in that. And then we also put up signs. If you walk into the Kennedy, we just put them up today. It says welcome. And
Carl, use the mic.
That's not working?
It's working with TV. There you go.
All right.
Not over.
Yeah, I got you.
All right. So if you walk into the Kennedy now, the first thing you'll see when you walk in, welcome posters in all the different languages. And then we will be hanging flags up in the cafeteria, all the different countries represented. We also just had a trivia competition right before Thanksgiving where we do homeroom against homeroom. And for the first time ever, we asked all the questions in English, Spanish, and Portuguese for everybody to make them feel involved. And then we had Rhonda Caldwell, who's the new EL coordinator, come and meet with our IST team and talk about ways that we could also help them academically. So it's just, the numbers are just growing and growing. And it's really, really important to make these kids feel welcome and comfortable within the school. So that is the Kennedy Middle School improvement plan.
Excellent. Dr. Wells.
Yeah. One technical question. You say you're going to decrease, your goal is to decrease chronic absenteeism by 10%.
Correct.
Do you mean as a goal of reaching 10%?
No, that'd be an incredible goal.
Well, yeah, but you were down to 15 because you...
Yep.
So that-
And we'll see, it fluctuates
Okay.
throughout the year. If I looked at it today, it's probably
Okay,
not going to be the same number. It does go up and down a little bit throughout the year.
okay. Do you know historically what has it been? Is this, you've reached,
I think it's gotten worse
Okay.
the last couple of years. I mean, I think with the pandemic, there's been some issues that we're dealing with, and just getting kids into school and figure out strategies to get them into school.
and do you think it's like individual problems, or is there like universal problems that explain like this?
No, I think to be honest with you, John, I think it varies from family to family and
Yeah.
student to student.
Okay. All right, thank
But
you.
it's really just trying to get an understanding of what we can do to get them into the building and make them feel comfortable and.
Yeah. Thank you.
All set? Mr. Lipset.
So on goal 4.
Sure.
So first of all, this is the second school improvement plan that's come before us that has a program that allows students to sort of buddy each other, mentor each other, which I think is just genuinely fantastic. Draws together community. I don't even have a question about it. I just wanted to point out that that's something that we've seen now, both I think at the Alta Vista and now at the Kennedy, and I love that as a concept, and I hope to see that continue. In terms of some of the discussions around strategies to assist ML students, did those get into programmatic stuff, curricular discussions
So
as
that-
well?
Yeah,
or-
that's where we're at right now, and that's why we had Rania come to our IST meeting just last week, just to talk about ways that we can help these students out. We need some ways within the classroom and pulling them out, and how can we assist them? We don't know the answers.
Okay.
And so that's where we're at. We have students that are coming to us that are struggling in their own language, never mind trying to learn English.
Yeah, I mean, I ask because budgetary season is right around the corner, amazingly enough, and so, just thinking towards whether or not it's looking like the Kennedy may be looking for additional staffing or anything along those
Oh,
lines.
I think
That's been my-
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so right now we have 2 full-time ML teachers with a ML para as well. And I think it's, when budget season comes around, it's going to be an area that we look at.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Crowley.
I also note, this is a great improvement plan, by the way. Thank you. I just wanted to note that it looks like your literacy goal, your reading goal, is also dependent on having the reading specialist.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
what is your feedback on having the reading specialist in the building?
Fantastic. Oh, she has been phenomenal. Yeah, and the kids enjoy going to it. They enjoy seeing their growth. We have, I don't know the exact number of students that meet with her, but it's a good amount. When we did this at first, we gave out the STAR assessment, and we looked at really those students in what they call the red level, and providing the assistance to them. But as we've seen, we've already retested those students that are meeting with her, and we've already started to see the growth with those students. So it'll be interesting to see when we retest the whole school again in January and how everybody else is doing.
Thank
Because
you.
a lot of the things that we learned from that first assessment, the other teachers are using it as well. It's not just the reading specialists.
Right.
We also have the EL teachers. Everybody are using it as well.
That's great, thank you.
I think we're good for that one.
Good.
And before I forget, I did neglect, in our audience, we have two newly elected school committee members, Jesse Wetzel and James Austin, as well as City Council President Michael Concanon and Mayor-elect Michael Concanon is here as well. Want to say
That's
hello.
just one person.
It is just one
They're both
person.
here.
Two titles. All right. Moving on now to the John F. Kennedy, why do I keep saying that?
Yep, so I'm actually going to bring up Sheila Yee, who's
Okay.
one of the teachers.
you wanna make a
We're
motion
gonna
to
do it
approve the
together,
plan?
that's okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry,
We
we
need
got to
a
make a
motion.
motion to approve the Kennedy plan.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So this, next on the agenda is the Washington DC trip for the Kennedy, with, again, Principal Carl Nelson and Sheila Yee.
So, we come before you because we've run the trip at Kennedy for many, many years, and Sheila and I were just talking about it. I ran it for about 10 years and then gave it up, and Sheila took it over from there and ran it another 7 years, with the 8th year would have been 2020, and with COVID, and it stopped and it went away. So we'd like to get it running up again. It's a trip that we just feel is a huge educational experience for the kids. The kids come back and they talk about it, and when they visit, we got letters here from kids who have done it, and so we just think it's really important that we provide that opportunity for the kids to go again.
Excellent.
Do you have a letter from Chris's son, too?
No, we had one from Mike's son, though.
I do have two letters from high school seniors who wrote essays for the WTA scholarship, and in both they reference the memories that they made in DC, how important they felt it was to their learning, to their educational time at the Kennedy, and just sort of what made their experience at the Kennedy just kind of a culminating effect for them.
And I think, Pat, I think your kids went.
Yep.
John, your kids might have gone. Chris, your kids went. They can all tell you what an experience it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I had kind of a little background. I got a lot of emails, I don't know, within the last month or so from parents, maybe even a little further back, saying, we'd love to go, we'd love to have it happen, and so on. So I did reach out to Carl because obviously I wasn't even 100% sure whether, you were on board. I wanted to make
it's
sure
a
of that
big
before.
I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
It's a big undertaking. First of all, we have to put it all together. We have to get the teacher volunteers to do it, which we have. We'll hit that in place. We're behind. If you approve it, we are behind with our fundraising. We like to do a lot of fundraising for this trip. Sheila did an amazing job when she took it over from me with her fundraising and the number of students that were able to go on this trip. We've also worked with some organizations within the community who have provided scholarships for us. So we're ready to go. We have information if you want to sort of know like details and things like that, but we're ready to go with it as soon as we get the green light.
Just some background, the last full year we were prepared to go, the 2020 year, 30 kids were partially or fully scholarshiped through various fundraising efforts. Included a lot of door knocking in the community, a lot of fundraising that we put together. There were years that we started planning in June, so the students would be 7th graders. Parents could sign up, therefore then they could spread out the cost over a longer period of time. We unfortunately have already missed 2 of our major fundraisers at this point. We missed our pie fundraiser for Thanksgiving, and we've missed our wreath and poinsettia sale, both of which we had one student many years ago who sold.
They paid for the whole trip.
And several $1,000s more.
Yeah.
At which point we had to put in some language that said you can fundraise for your trip if you are over that, then we would ask that that money go to a general pot. And some of the questions that Carl passed on to me, if I can just kind of jump ahead and answer them. One of the questions was about the company that we use. We've been using World Strides since the trip started. When I started at the Kennedy 22 years ago, the trip was already up and running with the company World Strides. World Strides is one of the foremost companies to run educational travel. Under their umbrella, they have now absorbed several smaller travel companies. They've absorbed Explorica. They've also absorbed EF, which was both of whom are Northeast Corridor travel experts for student travel. So we've consistently used World Strides. We did at one point shift to EF before they were absorbed by World Strides, and we were not happy with that. World Strides provides basically everything soup to nuts. So when you're there, you can just really be with your kids and be the chaperone. They take care of everything. The first year I went, we had a kid becoming so ill, we had to bring an on-call doctor in. And they immediately, there were no questions asked, brought the on-call doctor in, took care of him. Turns out he maybe ate sushi he shouldn't have. Can't help it. So that's sort of about World Strides. I do have, so World Strides this year has shifted their focus to doing a lot of the leadership programming that is running. So you'll often see, nominate a student for a leadership opportunity. And out of Washington, D.C., the programs run about $3,000. Their focus has shifted there, so their travel from the Boston area, if you will, has been shifted to Explorica to help keep costs somewhat down. So I do have, I did not make copies, I apologize, but I'm happy to share it with the school committee. When I get to school tomorrow, you can see all of their information is in there. They provide full liability insurance for us as their travelers. All meals are included for the students except for the first breakfast and the last dinner. All transportation is covered. Hotel stay in the metro area. We do try to stay as close to Washington as possible to eliminate some travel time. The next sort of piece of question mark was about the transportation company. Typically, we use Yankee Bus Company, but we have used other bus. We have used Premier Bus Company. It does depend. World Strides will not put us on a bus company with, feng hua, shall we say. That's just not what they do. It's always a very reputable bus company. It's a very large bus company that also offers opportunities for bus switchovers as necessary. The bus drivers are under very strict hour restrictions, driving to and from. We've often had to stop, usually Baltimore, and switch bus drivers. But the bus is ours from the minute we leave the Kennedy to the minute we get back to the Kennedy. Kids can leave stuff on there if they choose to. So those are our bus opportunities. Current projected student-to-teacher ratio is a 1 to 10 student-to-teacher ratio. We can shift that up to 1 to 12. The reason we would do 1 to 12 is because the rooming assignments are usually based on 4. So then each teacher would be in charge of 3 rooms, and that would be their responsibility for the entire time while they're at the trip. The current price for all of that is $1,163. The last price that when we were planning to go was $1,009. So it's not a significant increase in the grand scheme of everything jumping up. Unfortunately, like I said, we are behind in terms of that fundraising. We would be doing a lot of door knocking, asking people to sponsor kids. In terms of IEP services and 504 accommodations while traveling, also ML students. So the last year that we actually traveled in 2019 was the first year that we had any ML students who joined us. We had 2 Portuguese-speaking students and 2 Spanish-speaking students. We were lucky in the sense that both were considered advanced MLs. Their English was very solid, but while on the trip, our tour guides made every effort to provide them materials in native language while we were touring the various monuments and museums and things like that. So the great thing is, being in the nation's capital, much of this is very, very readily available. We've often brought students. I am a special ed teacher at the Kennedy. It's near and dear to my heart to bring kids. This is an opportunity many of them will not ever get. I remember my first trip, one little boy said, "There are little soaps in the bathroom. Are we allowed to use those?" Yes, sweetheart, you are. Because he had never been outside, didn't know what a hotel was. That experience, kind of factoring everything else out, just that experience alone is huge. In terms of teachers, teachers do volunteer their time. It is teachers who want to go. No one is forced to go. Many of them actually, we sometimes have to do a lottery to have people go because we have too many volunteers, which I know that sounds kind of crazy. You're giving up 4 days. I will tell you, when I first started running this trip, I left a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old at home with my husband and with a babysitter because I believe so strongly in travel for students. Sub-nurse pay, so that is something, the last couple of years, we paid for the nurse's room and her trip, all of her meals. We do have, the sub-nurse pay did come out of the school budget or the city budget, somewhere along there. One year we did fundraise for the nurse. The reason why we ended up paying extra for the nurse is because the nurse has to have a private room because she's administering medications to students. We try to preserve privacy and confidentiality to the best of our ability while we're kind of in a secluded area. Quarry information for all involved, that's all provided. The company itself takes care of all of the quarries. The bus companies are all quarried because they're driving students. But that is all coordinated through Explorica / World Strides. For the sake of easiness, I would happily say World Strides. What hotel, what are the sleeping arrangements? That's usually a TBD. We try to stay as close as possible. 2 of the potential hotels right now are the Comfort Inn in Alexandria or the Comfort Suites Chantilly, which is slightly outside, a little bit off from Alexandria. We have stayed at a Sheraton, we have stayed at a Marriott. We really just, we kind of go where we're allowed to go as close as possible. As I said, sleeping arrangements are typically 4 to a room, sometimes 3. Students can request to have smaller numbers than that if they only want 2 in a room, but there is an extra cost to the families. If there are medical issues, there was one year we brought a student with severe diabetic student. His father came with us, traveled with us, because he had to have someone in the room overnight for safety. We offered to fundraise and help pay for that father's trip. The father said nope, he wanted that money to go somewhere else, and he paid for his own cost. The company also, in a situation like that, waived the extra fee to have the student be in a 2-person room rather than a 4-person room. And as I said, the cost per family is $1,163 at this point in time.
Okay.
So,
Ms. Cormier.
You mentioned that the fundraising, you missed a few. Why is it that it's coming to us now and not, say, in June, like you mentioned for previous years?
So after COVID, we did try to start it back up again, and we were ready to pull the trigger in September, last September, and unfortunately at that time, there was a conversation of whether the trip needed school committee approval or not, and if it was not a school committee or a school-sanctioned event, then we couldn't travel during school time. And obviously last year was not a great year. So at that point, we sort of put it on hold.
But then there was also a new policy that came out where the school committee said no more out-of-state travel. So that's why we're coming back.
Yeah. Ours?
So at this point, we have people, it has also been brought up that there is not equity between the 2 middle schools, and that was one of the reasons given several years ago for not having the trip continue. And that's not something I can speak to. I can speak to the fact that I have volunteered to assist, but the reason the trip works so well is because we know these kids. We take people who know these kids. I will say we have had the same tour guides since Carl was running it. Paulie was with us for a long time. Paulie has since passed away. But we get compliments when they see that the Kennedy Middle School from Woburn, Massachusetts is coming. We have 3 tour guides who say we want them because we have that relationship with our kids. So that was one of the reasons why working with the other middle school, I couldn't take kids. I don't know them. So it would not work in the same way. But I have always volunteered to assist in any way possible.
Any other?
No, thank you.
Are you looking at?
No, go ahead.
Oh, because I thought he had his hand up, and then he pointed to you.
I was about to, but they were all set, so go ahead.
Thank you
Ms.
so
Crowley.
much for answering my questions. All of those questions were mine.
Oh, okay. I just know I was handed questions, so.
And I have concerns about this, but
Okay.
I feel so much better having you here. Because for a while it was, the Kennedy wants to do the trip, and then it, there was a lot of confusion. So I'm just
Okay.
glad that the Kennedy administration and you are here to request the trip, so then we can have a
Absolutely.
discussion on it. And the basis of my concern was that making sure that all of the kids can go, right? But I'm preaching to two educators,
Absolutely.
of course. But hearing that, children that receive special ed services will be able to go, and, those are my major concerns. So I just want to thank you and also acknowledge that those were my questions.
No, that's fine. One of the things, I do not do this alone, so I need to put that out there. There
Yes.
is a team of us who do it, but we have always maintained the reason a child should not go to Washington DC should never be because of money. If they choose not to go, then we can understand that. There are some kids who just aren't comfortable doing it. But money was never the reason, nor were any of these other factors.
All set?
Yes.
Mr. Lipset.
So just one question sort of following up on Ms. Crowley's. And one thing I don't know is so if we have, for example, a student who requires, for example, one-to-one para or very specialized assistance or accommodations, how can that be handled?
So we would just make arrangements for that. We
Okay.
would factor in, we would make sure we have an extra person. We usually bring several special ed staff. We have 1 year our school psychologist came with us because we had some kids who needed that level of assistance. We
Okay.
have her with us. We would just find a way to make it work.
Okay.
I can't tell you specifically because we haven't had that situation. But like I said, in this similar way, we would bring a parent if a parent wanted to come. We've had parents say, I don't think my child can travel without, so we have offered it to parents if they feel like that would be good. We would not give that parent any other students to be responsible for,
Right.
though.
Yeah, I mean, I have similar concerns to Ms. Crowley, just in terms of making sure that, for example, students in specialized programs might be able to attend as well, and you've answered a lot of those, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Actually, Ms. Moran.
I want to
Ms.
make
Chisholm.
sure that our policy doesn't still say that, because I know that we voted that years ago, that we would never approve overnight out-of-state.
So if I may, through the chair, can you define school sanctioned?
This is school sanctioned,
What does that mean?
school committee approval.
Yeah.
Because our JJH from 2004 says that the school committee will not review or approve trips that are privately organized and run without school sanctioning. So,
Right. This is school sanctioned because we are sanctioning it. We would never, if they wanted to do World Strides during April vacation, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to point you.
No, that's
April vacation, we would not approve that. We have to approve this because it's during
School days.
school day.
right, so what I'm saying is, it's saying that, I guess I'm asking, where did it say that we could not?
An advisory came out that we should not
Right.
be allowing overnight travel because of liability.
And that was 2004 or more recently?
More recently.
More recently, but we never passed, I don't think we ever passed policy. I think we were
Yeah.
Right,
advised to, but then couldn't
never
quite
really
get there.
nailed
I think it was tabled and then it never,
It
just kind
never,
of, yeah. So I guess because when I read this, it made me think that that we will not review trips without school sanctioning. Sounds like we won't review things that we haven't said are okay. So it seemed to,
I think we had a trip not too long ago that was like, the parents said, we'll handle it, we'll do it.
Right.
And I think we stepped away from it and said, it's not our trip.
Right.
If the
Yes.
parents want to take on that responsibility,
but this is our trip and we're taking full
Yes.
responsibility
Right.
for
yes,
it.
yeah.
And by approving it.
Pat, you
Yep.
still
although
have?
there's probably waivers that the parents sign as far as any liabilities.
Well, it's third party.
Oh, sorry. Yes, so
Lawyer talk.
they put out, there are medical waivers and there are behavioral waivers. There's a lot of waivers that they sign. And as I said, any of the medical liability does shift to the rider that World Strides carries for us.
No, I'm just excited that it's coming back. And I'm so happy that you have the enthusiasm to do this, and I appreciate the fact the teachers are willing to do this, and this is great. I just don't want an issue to become the Joyce Kennedy thing, because I'm sure this is going to get approved, it'll be in the paper, and our phones are going to start ringing. Because parents are going to be mad at Joyce that their kids can't go. Not your fault, and I think that, somebody shouldn't have to do something just because somebody else doesn't. So I hope they have a great time.
Conley, did you have anything else?
No, I mean, I see that the DESI requirements had changed, and that's why it had come up. That's why we had discussed it. It just seems like I can't remember the word, but like for us to approve something that we sanction, it seemed like it was just kind of a revolving thing that like keeps going back. Like, so I thought maybe there was a different definition for some reason that would say if the Kennedy said it was okay, then it would be presented to us. If it wasn't, then we would say no. And that's so.
Right.
I was just trying to get the definition there to really understand.
You all set, Pat?
Yep.
Mr. Moran?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I could, first of all, you're right, this is not a single operation, one person. I've seen this in operation when they leave the Kennedy, when they come back, the enthusiasm and the teamwork put into this, and I'm so happy to see it come before us again tonight. It sounds to me you've taken care of all the red tape, all the concerns basically have been addressed by this board, and I'm looking forward to, voting in behalf of this and getting it off the ground and going myself as quick as we can. Sorry you missed out on a couple of fundraising events, but I know if you have the enthusiasm in the building, it'll go off, and hopefully you'll have a great time. So thanks for all of it. It's fantastic.
Mike, you've mentioned that you've seen them off and come back. You didn't sit there for 4 days in the parking lot.
I did.
Like
He
a
took his
puppy?
mobile home and sat there.
Like a puppy?
I just followed them down in the motorhome. But it's something to see the teamwork and the efforts put before by this school to make this happen in the past. And, the red tape, the situations that we had, the concerns, it's all cleared up here tonight. So, hopefully we'll get this proved and be on with it. So thank you very much for coming in tonight, and good luck.
Thank you.
Oh, we gotta wait 2 more.
we have to go.
Thanks, Mike. But
In an unusual turn of events, John Wells is going last.
Unbelievable, huh?
that's the
We finally figured it out.
So I just had, I understand your desire to make sure that every child can go that wants to go, but when you put a cost on something, even though you're trying to explain to everybody that, you can go regardless, I know some kids would say, I'm not going to approach my parents because it's a cost associated. I'm just not sure how we can convey truly that what you're saying to make it a reality that anybody wants to go can go, because, if somebody brought this home, and say, here's the cost to their family, and they're having trouble meeting other expenses, they're not going to look at the fine print and say, oh, if you don't want to go, if you want to go, we'll somehow figure it out, because the parents aren't going to maybe not be as proactive and calling the school and saying, oh, how can my kid go, and so forth. So I'm just.
So if I can jump
Yep.
in, that's where we come in. And
Okay.
if we have kids who haven't signed up, we call them in, we ask them,
Okay.
what's going on? I don't think my parent can afford it. Let's call your parent right now.
Okay.
And then we work with the parent. How much do you think you can?
Okay.
How much do you think you can do? Can you do this? Can we get an extended payment plan? Are there opportunities? World Strides does provide a lot of opportunities for kids to have kind of like a wish list, and they can send it to relatives, and they can send, money into an account for that student. That's one way. Other ways, we're a little relentless, I'm not going to lie. We're a little bit of a dog with a bone. My goal was, before the COVID kind of killed our trip, was to take every 8th grader. And we had, the year of COVID, we had 143 out of 160 signed up and ready to go. And then COVID killed us. So, but that was a proud moment for us, and that is something we will always stand by. We will make sure we find, I will not lie, I have begged my own family, I need you to sponsor a kid for me. And I will do that.
I appreciate your diligence.
Yeah.
People who've been around long enough who know me, know that I.
But I think it's a good idea to keep track of those numbers, because if you start seeing, say, there's 160 students, and then next for this trip, we approve it, only 100 go. you start to see a decrease, then maybe has to be evaluated whether the message is being sent out or we're really as inclusive as we want to be. So I did have, comment for the committee. Again, we do this, we open this up for other school-sanctioned trips that, again, we've been advised by the MASC that it's not probably the best thing for school committees to be doing. So.
We are taking it one at a time. It's not just automatic.
Yeah, but it's hard, but
then
through
how
the
do you
chair, we said,
This is a great presentation, so we.
Yeah, I know, but it's just the thing that you have to think about as a committee in general. Once we open it up again, probably see more from the high school, things that we've seen in the past and stuff, so.
All set?
Motion to approve?
No,
Ellen has
Through the
something.
chair, most of the time, when there's overnight travel, it's associated with a event or where there's a group going, like the UN,
Tournament.
Contest
Right.
or.
the contests, and so usually that's what we're faced with. This is different because this is a field trip. So this is why it's a little bit more of a deliberation and a discussion versus the kids from the business club
Right.
Yeah,
going
that's
to
something.
represent that. So even if we might see more overnight travel, it's probably not going to be like the entire 10th grade wanting to go to Canada. I don't think it's going to be at the slippery slope that Dr. Wells thinks it's going to.
And it is educational benefit.
No, but-
Field trip, yeah.
That's what you meant.
No, but I just remember there were ones to New York City that weren't necessarily tied to an event, but it was at the high school. They had one. So, it's just something for the committee to be aware of.
all right. Lorena, did you have something
I
to
just
say?
want to make a motion, we approve the trip as presented this evening. It's,
Second.
I have a second. Do we have any discussion? More discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Fundraising started.
All set.
thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Have
Enjoy.
fun.
Yeah.
Is that your pen? Did you?
Oh, it is. I would leave it for you. Thank
Have
you
a good
very
one.
much.
Yeah,
Much
thank you.
appreciated.
Take care. All right, next up is the Joyce Middle School Improvement Plan with Principal Tom Quayle.
So it does look like technology's working, so.
Boy, huh?
Yeah.
All right, thank you for having me tonight. I'm looking forward to this day since last year. Okay, so we have this one. All right, so before you have copies of the improvement plan?
We do, thank you.
I should have printed them for you. Mine look a little nicer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, we'll save money on the ink.
Color printed.
All right. So the second page is just a little bit about our mission statement and our vision statement, the school council members who approved this plan, and then I did put in some student data from our MCAS scores. I'm not going to go through all of it. We had some significant progress last year. I changed the way I compared things a little bit, so it's more comparing apples to apples. You'll notice some blank boxes in the 6th grade. That's because I compared the 7th and 8th grade, so I compared like the 8th grade last year to the 7th grade the year before, so I'm comparing the same kids. In the 7th grade compared to the 6th grade, so for the majority, it's the same kids. It's not like this group of 6th graders is different than this group of 6th graders. Everyone's different, so this is more comparing apples to apples and so forth. So anyway, so that's the data. We had a lot of improvement, and we were very happy with the gains we made. So with our improvement plan, I did work with Cal Nelson a little. A couple of them are the same. The first one is we want to improve our reading levels through the use of additional reading skills classes, the reading interventionists, as well as utilizing PLCs for data analysis and lesson planning. We'll improve our STAR reading proficiency rate for meeting and exceeding expectation benchmark from 40 to 50%, which is actually a 20% increase. So much like the Kennedy, we take the STAR diagnostic in both math and English 3 times during the year. We took some of that data and our Tier 3 kids, which are the kids who need the most help, they were placed with our reading interventionist, and she has, I want to say, 10 blocks twice a week with probably about 5 to 6 kids in a small group, so they're getting a lot of individual attention. Our 7th and 8th grade students, so with the benefit of the reading interventionist, my reading and study skills teacher last year, they taught 3 extra classes to the kids who are our lowest kids, who are the current Tier 3 kids. This year, where the reading interventionist is taking them, now my reading and study skills teacher, they're teaching 3 extra reading classes a week to our Tier 2 kids who are probably 5 to 10 points from meeting expectations on the MCAS. So now those kids are getting some extra support as well. That was the biggest benefit of the reading interventionist. Our content teachers are also started their PLC meetings. They're looking at data, and once again, it's not just an English teacher, it's math, science, social studies. They're all involved looking at the data and how that they can improve their lesson planning and the overall educational experience for the students. So anyway, like I said, the goal is to raise it from 40 to 50%. And we'll be taking the STAR assessment in January, and then some kids will move out of the intervention if they can, and some kids will move in if they have to. And so that'll be reshuffled around the midpoint of the year, starting the second semester. All right. Goal number 2 is to create more teacher collaboration and data analysis and unit lesson plan creation. We'll participate in the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education Literacy Inclusive Instruction Academy so that we can create a professional learning community framework within the Joyce Middle School. So we're currently, me and my assistant Ken Mills, as well as some of the curriculum coordinators, we talked about this about a month ago. We'll be, we go to monthly meetings, sometimes it's twice a month. The people we're working with, they're also providing professional development. They did something on UDL, which we talked about, and they're going to come back again in winter sometime to work on some more stuff with the staff. So we're creating a PLC schedule so that they're meeting a couple times a week. So like both 7th grade math teachers will meet together with the curriculum coordinator, look at data together. And likewise with English, math, science, foreign language jumps in there with, they rotate to a different group because we don't have a curriculum coordinator for the foreign language teachers, but they're still involved in planning as well. All right, goal number 3. Once again, during this school year, we want to lower the number of students defined by department head as chronically absent by 15%. This goal will be met if 68 or less students have been chronically absent by June 1st. Right now, last year, 79% of our students were chronically absent. We were looking at this data the other day, and I got 5 kids already that are chronically absent. 4 of them for legit medical reasons. The Department of Ed, they don't distinguish whether it's excused or not. They could be in a hospital after a leg surgery for 3 months, and they're still considered as chronically absent. So our rate right now is low. It's right around 13%, whereas last year we were up around 18%. So right now it's going pretty well, but once again, we're working with students and families. We're working with the court system. We have a couple CRAs where we're trying to get the kids in school, where the parents can't get the kids in school. We meet with guidance meets with them. Our adjustment council meets with different kids. And once again, the same thing with COVID. The kids haven't really bounced back from it yet. I want to say our chronically absent rate was probably around 11% before COVID. So it almost doubled since COVID. We're working with the families and with the kids. I met with 7 kids today, just talk about some kids valid reasons. You know, you got some kids with cultures. My mother had to work. I have to babysit my brother. You know, and you're like, you got to be in school, but you understand where they're coming from. The kids of today are different than they were 10 years ago, and they're a lot needier, and they need a lot of support from us and just getting them in school. And the last goal is To improve our overall school culture, we're having various culture-building activities and events throughout the school year. These activities will promote strengthening positive character traits for the Joyce Middle School students. We had a fabulous guest speaker come in and speak to the kids about kindness and respect in September. We're going to have someone else come in the spring. We do our monthly character traits where each team picks 2 students who best exemplifies the character trait of the month. Those kids get an award. Special ed, some of the substantially separate special ed programs, they also submit kids. So we have about 13 kids that go up on our wall every month. We just had a fantastic coat drive. We gave away over 200 coats. I'm not sure if you saw us on WBZ, but the Joyce Exchange program is really taking off, and the guidance and Ms. Petaruto, she's done a great job really moving this along. It's more than just food now. It's like going to a department store. And the kids are using it more than ever this year. We also have the student council. We'll be doing a random act of kindness week. We'll be doing spirit weeks, and we'll have some other activities going on. We'll have our actual food drive that we have every winter, which we've done for 15 years. So those are our goals in the improvement plan. Any questions? John? I'm acting chairman.
All right.
I was just,
Dr. Wells.
I was looking at the math, 7th grade math compared to the 6th grade. You had a real drop. Do you have any thoughts about what might have happened?
Yes. I'm trying to say as little as I can, but we had one teacher who was on leave for half the year, and one that was on for a quarter of the year, where we had, one of them, we had 3 different substitutes just because they stopped coming, so.
It seemed to be
That's
going against
that's
the
a
trend.
major part of the reason, I
Yeah.
believe.
Okay, it wasn't like there was some
No.
like it wasn't covered or something. Okay, thank you.
That's my question.
All right. Anyone else? Any questions? Mr.
Just
Lipson.
a quick question regarding chronic absenteeism, and this is something that I should have asked in the previous presentation. Are there parts of the year where we tend to see a greater increase? I notice, both in terms of the Kennedy and for you,
Not
it's
as much
down
of
right
a
now.
chronic absentee, but more kids are absent in the winter.
Okay.
And it's not them taking extra days off, but it's just time of the year with more stuff. But
So we should be cautiously optimistic in terms of the current drop,
Yes.
but expect that there could be some additional increases
this is
down
where
the
we
line.
gotta spend a little bit more time with the kids.
Okay. Thank you.
Sometimes it's too cold and they don't wanna get sent to school.
Understood. Sometimes it's too cold, I don't want to go to school. I get it.
Exactly.
All right. Any other questions? Oh, that's great. Mr. Crowley.
I think this is a great improvement plan. I just have a question. You might not know the answer to this. So last year,
If not, I'll make something up.
one of your goals for this year was to reduce acute hospitalization.
That was last year, yes.
Yeah. Did that improve, or what was the
Yes,
result of
so
that?
we had one less, we went from 4 the previous year to 3 last year.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, ever since you brought that up, it was,
yeah, we,
Yeah.
always, I was wondering about it.
our social emotional group of guidance and school adjustment council, they do a great job
Yeah.
with working with families and so forth, so.
Yeah, it just seems like your school improvement plan is very well coordinated between academic rigorous goals and also social emotional goals. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I could, Tom, talk about chronic absenteeism and the DESI regulation for that. I guess it's above all of us here at the table. Perhaps the superintendent might want to chime in. So what you're saying is that the DESI folks are saying, you're absent, you're absent, you're absent. So you're trying to tell them, well, this child was hospitalized. They couldn't come to school. And they're still going to indicate them as being chronic absent because of X amount of days. So is that something we as a committee, perhaps, in a subcommittee could look at that and try to redefine it maybe, or?
We
seems-
go to the state and push for it. Their
Yeah,
definition
yeah.
is 10%, which is roughly 18 days a year.
All right.
Based on if they're here a full year, which seems like a lot. Like, I met with a kid today, And I was doing math with him. I said, okay, you've been absent 10 days. It's been 11 weeks. How many days a week is that? First he goes, 3. I'm like, no. Think again. He thinks, he goes, 1 day a week. I go, do you know what would happen if I was absent once a week? He goes, you get in trouble? I go, exactly. I'd be sitting in the superintendent's office. I go, I just want you to know, we want you to do the best you can.
Yeah, we have factors, we have things in place to, and everybody's trying their best to do it. I just didn't know if, there's another way of looking at it, but.
Yeah, like when I was looking at the chronic absentees, we mark them excused, some of them, if doctors know or whatever.
Yeah.
So I have an idea, like this girl that was absent, she's been absent 27 days, mostly because of hospitalization for a surgery, and I'm like, I'm not going to send a chronic absence letter to the mother. I know
Right.
why she's
You know what she's all the time.
It's the ones we don't know about.
Right.
And sometimes parents, they get that letter and they'll go, oh, well, I have doctor's notes for these 3 days. I go, well, just send them in.
Send them in.
Or they'll give me a reason, and some of them are good and some aren't.
It just seems, a couple of schools have had them in before us, and now both yourself and the Kennedy, and, it's something to be addressed, so, thank you. All set.
Just quickly, a couple things. It's a statewide, probably national issue. DESE has put out some guidance on ways to reduce chronic absenteeism. To Tom's point, and I think Carl might have said it too, COVID has impacted people's willingness or ability to get up and actually come to school. We did have a meeting yesterday. Was it yesterday?
Yes, they all run together.
Tom, Carl, and Dan, and we did talk about chronic absenteeism. We do have a new mechanism to kind of look at who has been chronically absent pretty quickly. But what I'm saying is, and I know he's here, all the principals know their kids. And so it's really impressive that they're able to tell you who's absent and why. And so I think it's a tribute to the personalization and effort to get to know the rationale for absenteeism whenever possible. So just wanted to.
Yeah, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Ms. Chisholm.
I mean, it's just the absenteeism just isn't with kids either, adults. I mean, not going to work anymore, and every Monday and Friday seems to be extended weekends. But so I feel bad about that, but it's a whole cultural thing now, and it's accepted for a lot of people, and it's tough. But anyway, I think you did a great job on this, and
I had to get an academy award if I wanted to stay home. My
Yeah.
girl wouldn't let me stay home.
oh, truly, I mean, yeah, I had to be almost dead, and even then she'd say, "Well, there's life here." Yeah, there was nothing there, but it's a whole different culture now. People just, it's crazy, but that's, I give credit, and thank the PTO for doing my shopping for me. I appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
So,
All set?
yep.
Well, thank you very much.
Motion to approve the
Oh, yeah.
plan as presented.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Let's have it. Thank you.
Two.
See you, Tom.
Next up is the Woburn Memorial High School Improvement Plan. Principal Dan Rasmussen, please. Remind me to approve this, will you?
Yeah. Jeez.
What's with the glasses? I thought you were off glasses.
No, I got it to read close up right now. So this gets fixed.
I don't know if you all have copies. I'm
Yep.
a digital native. Oh, it's projected, so I'm just gonna pull it up. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good evening.
All right, so run through, so we met with school council and got some feedback and outlined the structure of the goals as it aligns with the strategic plan. And up here, we can see the, if you scroll down, the members of school council. We have 3 teacher representatives, 3 parents, a student representative, and myself. And then we have the available data that we looked at to inform the goals that we're going to go through today. Goal number 1, relating to the strategic plan, goal number 1
The building goal is to increase the consistent application of deeper learning and effective instructional practices, specifically looking within the domains of inclusive teaching practices and culturally sustaining pedagogy, measured through the increase in classroom application as shown through our walkthrough data collection, basically looking at the increase from our baseline in September and October over to June. So their action steps continue the work we're doing through our instructional leadership team, through walkthroughs and data collection. We're also, one thing that came through school council that I mentioned through teacher leadership team, talked through at instructional leadership team this week was restarting instructional rounds. So purely teacher-facing, teacher-led, getting teachers into classrooms to look at exemplary teaching around those domains, and then leveraging the excellent teaching that's already happening as it relates to those domains, inclusive teaching practices and culturally sustained pedagogy, to leverage professional development both during professional development days and choice days, but also department meetings. One of the other ways that we're going to do this is through the math curriculum selection and adoption process. And then one of the other things that came out of this conversation was looking at a coaching structure at the high school, so trying to separate a little bit the evaluation process and we look towards coaching cycles as a way to move the needle a little bit quicker in terms of micro chunks of feedback and having clearly defined outcomes for the instructional leadership team, involving the teacher leadership team, and having that teacher-led coaching through the instructional rounds as well. Goal number 2, aligned to the strategic plan around tiered systems of support. So the goal at the high school will be to develop comprehensive and aligned Tier 1 and Tier 2 structure, focuses on specifically students feeling welcome, safe and supported, social, emotionally, culturally, linguistically, and academically by the end of the school year. Things that we're going to do for this are to continue our implicit bias training and our advisory program. And there is, I should put in responsibility, there is an advisory group as well that's working on this. And one of the main focuses here is to develop a working group to map what we're currently doing, because we're doing a lot, and also formalize the things that we're doing that might be happening in some places, not in others, and formalize those. The existing Tier 1 supports and develop a plan for Tier 2, and develop a menu of interventions and delivery of those interventions and supports, and then develop and implement a standardized system of measurement and documentation. For example, PowerSchool has a plugin, an MTSS plugin that ties right into our SIS that we could use as a potential resource for this work. Goal number 3, a new bell schedule for next year. Really just building on, there seems to be a lot of work that's been done. There have been seemingly a lot of scheduling committees. There's a lot of data out there. We were at a teacher leadership team meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I think for every year of service in that group, there's been that many times that people have heard that the new bell schedule is coming. So it's, there's been a lot of work done already. So it's really just building on the research and the work that's been done. The school council had the thought of piggybacking off of the scheduling committee that was there last year. There was one pilot done. There was going to be another one done. So looking to first develop priorities. I think some of the things that have already been talked about for a new schedule are common planning time, some sort of intervention block, and figuring out what is best to support teachers, to support students, and make sure that the priorities are there, and then evaluate models and options, and then get feedback on those, pilot those options, and then roll that process out as we look towards the new school year. So those are our goals.
Dr. Wells?
So, could you explain this? I'm not really clear about the bell schedule. What's the actual goal? What do you hope to obtain? What's the, I assume it's more than just determining when the bell will ring, but there must be a deeper goal, and I'm kind of trying to understand that.
So the goal is developing those priorities. So the goal is aligned to that strategic plan, like systems and structures that support deeper learning and effective instructional practices. The bell schedule is a big one. So allowing teachers common planning time, allowing an intervention block, allowing collaboration and advisory.
So you really, is it more about the schedule, that, like you're using the word bell, which you
Yeah.
really mean is a schedule?
Yeah.
Because,
To me,
okay.
they're synonymous, and if that's not
Yeah,
clear,
that wasn't clear to me.
If you're in a high school, the bell means the schedule. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, no.
I can get rid of the word bell.
Yeah. Well, if everybody else understands it, then you
Yeah,
don't
no,
have
that's a fair point.
Then I had a question about the first goal, and, you know, trying to understand the actual measurement that the goal's been successful. And, the walkthroughs and collection, those are all subjective, and look for something concrete. And you said data pertaining to inclusivity in the course enrollment. Do you mean the breakdown of the students in the different classes?
Yeah. So, for example, with the dashboards that we have through Open Architects, we're able to see, and this pertains to our accountability data, and looking at the achievement gaps and equity gaps that might exist, and looking at demographics of students enrolled in honors and AP versus students that are enrolled in intro and foundations courses, to look at, whether the inclusive teaching practices are in place. It's really about consistent application of those in every classroom, in every period throughout the building. And as far as the subjectivity goes, this is where the instructional leadership team comes in. We have rubrics, we have data measures where information is captured, and we do a lot of work to not necessarily eliminate the subjectivity, because it is a person who is capturing this information, but reduce it where we are looking for these indicators around culturally sustaining pedagogy and consistently seeing those over time and improving those over time. Frequency as much as effectiveness is an important measure of those.
So is there evidence that our course enrollment is skewed in different courses, so that it's not inclusive for all the students? Because that's what it seems to imply, that if I was to walk through and see math X and compare, the enrollment might be different based on the subject, or that's what I'm trying to understand.
Not necessarily on the subject, but on the course level.
Okay.
And this, we just got access to the dashboards, and we just got that layer built in to the way that they are able to slice things up. But when you look at an honors math class, for example, you are going to see a lot of gen ed students. You're not going to see many students on IEPs, for example. But when you go into CP, you're going to see more students on IEPs. When you go into foundations, you're going to see more. And there are numerous levels of each course at the high school.
Right.
There's an ML course, or there's an ML section, there's enhanced competency, there's foundations, there's CP, there's honors. And all of those have different makeups. And all of those have impacts for equity and inclusion, and the goal of this deeper learning, and especially as it relates to the culturally sustaining pedagogy.
So is there, again, hitting on the data thing, a magic number that we're trying to, how do you know if what you're doing is successful, I guess, from this, a year from now, if you were to look at, how would you know the data says that what you did here is going in the direction you want it to go, as
Yeah.
opposed to not making any difference.
Yep, and that's the increase.
Okay.
So, we've done our walkthroughs, we've done our data gathering, and we have basically a snapshot of where instruction stands at the high school. And there is really, really good teaching happening in a lot of places. And I think my goal is instructionally just to make things consistent, so that, across course level, but also across every content area, so that, kids don't have inconsistent experiences when they're going to certain classes, certain departments, so that expectations are the same for all students, regardless of race, gender, ability level, et cetera. And so that goal will be met with an increase in the walkthrough data, an increase in what teachers are seeing as inclusive practices. Because this is more of a leading indicator. And when we look at things like, we're doing the STAR assessment, we have MCAS, we have all of this diagnostic data, I look at that as more of a lagging indicator, reflective of the inputs that are going in, similar to attendance. So if we can try to measure what's going into classrooms, what's going into teaching and learning, I think we'll have a better idea of the effectiveness of what teachers are putting in. And the idea behind the instructional rounds for teachers are just to, I think part of it is making everyone a little more confident, because there's really good stuff happening. And I think the awareness that that's the case. So increasing the visibility of people that are really good at inclusive practices, really good at culturally sustained pedagogy, and shining a light on that. And people can see that and say, okay, it's not coming from an administrator. It's not coming from me saying, hey, you have to do this. But it's coming from someone walking through a classroom and saying, hey, that looks like a really good strategy. I'm going to do that. And that ties in with these goals and these domains. And so the increase in the effectiveness of these practices will come through the frequency, which will lead to those lagging indicators and all of the, the outputs increasing.
Okay, that makes sense. I did notice that you mentioned math curriculum. Is this a focus on this aim as opposed to the other,
It's just more of a matter of circumstance.
Okay.
Because the math department's in the process of selecting a new curriculum.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was worth calling out.
Okay.
Just because it will tie in with this goal. And the math department is in the process of vetting a new curriculum.
And then the other, this may be, again, me with terms. I've seen Tier 1 and Tier 2 with like reading and things like that, and I'm trying to understand, you mean the same thing when you're in Goal 2, you said align Tier 1 and Tier 2 structures. I don't know if there's a different meaning in your goal than like I've seen with like reading, support and things like that.
Yeah, and those are comprehensive of everything.
Okay.
So Tier 1 is really what happens to every student every day.
Yeah, right.
And then if those things aren't working, whether it's instructional practices or social-emotional practices or anything else that students receive on a daily basis, if they're not working, then what do we know that we've tried that hasn't worked? And what do we have available for Tier 2 structures? And then Tier 3, we look at the programs that we have at the high school. Such as GAIN, such as Alt-Ed, such as TASK and transitional ed, some of the special ed.
But you didn't mention Tier 3 in this goal.
No, because I think the first step in our
Okay.
goal is just being more formal and
Okay.
really mapping out what exists and consistent kind of thing.
Yeah, it's just the wording caught me a little by surprise. Thank you.
Mr. Lipset.
Just a couple of quick things. Trying to figure out how to word this. So you talked about, in looking at equity data, across courses and across course levels, about the number of levels that exist in various courses. I'm curious as to how that might impact thinking around the bell schedule. I mean, is there overlap there? Is that something you have to take into account? And how might that impact your thinking in terms of the bell schedule?
Yeah, it's definitely a consideration, and it's going to be part of the conversations we're getting into very soon with TLT, with the instructional leadership team. And, as people get into departments and start thinking about course selections, because it's hard to schedule that many sections of that many courses. And what we see now is we might have an enhanced competency class with 4 kids in it and CP or honors classes with 24 kids. And that brings up issues logistically, but in terms of what's fair, what's equitable for kids. So looking towards this idea of inclusive practices, that idea permeates operations as well, in terms of the bell schedule, in terms of how we're looking at course selections. Moving towards inclusion in that regard as well.
So when you look at course selection, more information will be available to you in terms of how you might be able to
And that's
adjust.
something that'll come through the coordinators, through departments, and through other stakeholders.
Yes, okay, thank you. And you also talked about moving towards a coaching model in terms of connecting with classroom walkthroughs. So when you mentioned that, you mentioned sort of moving, that's in terms of the evaluation model, moving towards a coaching model. Could you explain what that means and sort of talk a little bit about what your vision of that is?
Yeah, so, evaluation is evaluation. That's Desi's thing. It's not going anywhere. It has a certain connotation. People don't necessarily love that process, and it doesn't always lead to instructional improvements. And there are things that schools can do as far as coaching that can lead towards instructional improvement that I think will be effective in terms of how they're received by teachers, but also in terms of how they're rolled out, where people will opt into those things at first, and it builds a culture of coaching and a culture of people being open to receiving feedback instead of being told that, no, you have to get feedback. And I think that's a big part of coaching and a big part of improvement. And the idea of this goal being around just developing a coaching structure, not necessarily implementing a coaching structure, is just what does this look like for people that people are going to be comfortable with.
Okay.
And everybody has something to work on, but it's not going to be the same thing. And so I can't say, as the principal of 1,240 kids and a whole bunch of teachers, like, this is what everybody needs to work on all at once. It doesn't work that way. So looking at teachers who are experienced and teachers who are new, like, everybody brings something different to the table, and there's a lot of strengths to leverage there. So the coaching structure and the coaching model is really thinking about how to leverage that and leverage the strengths of people and open doors a little bit more, so, literally and metaphorically, so people can see what folks are doing and say, that actually works pretty well, I'm going to do that. And then that's how you build a culture of instructional improvements.
Yeah.
And then evaluation happens, but it's not a big scary thing because people are used to having people in their classrooms, they're used to going to other classrooms.
Right.
And planning is happening in conjunction with other people that are really good at planning for ML students or special ed students, or planning for engagement strategies or
Right.
different things. Like, you're able to find those resources within the building instead of someone from up here saying, guess what, everybody, this is what you're doing on this half day. And everyone's saying, like, well, I have other things I need to be doing, but I guess so.
But it sounds like, again, that goes to the scheduling discussion in terms of building in that collaborative time, making sure the teachers have so that this isn't another thing on top of all of the other duties, but, okay.
Yeah, and this is, that goal 3 is really a linchpin to a lot of this, because without time for teachers to not only be supported but feel supported, a lot of these things are starting to happen. So that common planning time where people can work in PLCs and get support in planning Because differentiation and accommodation, like, you can't wing it in front of a classroom. So you need time to plan, you need time to gather resources and make sure you know what you're doing before you walk into a classroom, and that's where that comes up.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, good collaborative time and collaborative time where where that's clearly a priority of the school can be an incredible benefit. So thank you for presenting this. Appreciate it.
Ms. Cormier?
Question, I noticed in goal number 1, there are some things that are ongoing currently, is walkthroughs, professional development. How has that been received by the staff so far?
Mixed reviews. But I think there's a lot of trust building that's going on. I'm new. So, there's a lot of, I think hesitancy towards new things, which I completely understand. And my approach to a lot of these things that are ongoing, like the walkthroughs, like, in goal number 2, we talk about the implicit bias training. I've learned a lot from teachers. I've taken a lot of feedback from teachers. How I communicate things is really important, just in terms of what things are, but also what they're not. And just being consistently clear on, like, walkthroughs, for example, are not evaluative. They're just a way for us to see in aggregate, holistically, how instruction is going in the building, and stick with that. And, majority of people, I think, either don't really care that much or seem okay with it, and then others are having a hard time with it. And so I've been hearing concerns and validating concerns because those concerns are real. But the work needs to continue for students, because students need to have consistently great experiences across the school. And, so it's, I think mixed is the best way I can describe it, but it's early.
It sounds like the walkthroughs are a good opportunity for some teachers to have an overview of how others do it, and normally they wouldn't because they're teaching their own classes. So
Yep.
There's learning there for them as well,
Yeah.
people who are walking through.
Yeah, and we've invited teachers on walkthroughs, but it's right now, going back to the schedule, it's hard for teachers to give up time in the day. And we've offered to relieve teachers of duties, but they need that time. So, and that's one of the things that generated the conversation about getting the instructional rounds back up, because that will, we will give teachers coverage so they can actually do this. And it's not a sacrifice in their time. I had a conversation with a science teacher that really stuck with me. He said it's a zero-sum game. If you're going to do something, that means you're not doing something else, because time is such a finite thing. And, thinking about, like, well, we're inviting teachers, why aren't they coming? Well, because they are extraordinarily busy. And so how can we bridge that gap? I think the instructional rounds that had been going on are a great way to do that.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? All right, we're going to vote to approve this.
Motion to approve the Woburn Memorial High School improvement plan as presented, Mr.
Second.
Chairman.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. Thank you very much.
Love the fact you have a student on your council. That's really good.
All right, next up is the superintendent's evaluation. Last week, or I think it was last week or so, sometime, the superintendent sent us all out information for us to review, and I had asked by Saturday or Sunday, the weekend basically, to get back each individual evaluation, and I have compiled numbers based on those evaluations, and anyone that wants to talk about their own individual, there was a section for your own comments based on on your reasoning and so on. So we can start off with either going around, what's the best bet? Do the numbers first?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So on the standards for leadership, there's four standards and then 3 goals. On the standards under leadership, based on adding everything up and doing the math right, I hope, we came to a 3.5 out of a possible 4. So it was 1, 2, 3, 4, of course, and a 3.5 based on the 7 votes, or whatever they call them. Management.
You might want to tell what the score equals, like what category, like this exceptional.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. So 4 is exemplary, 3 was proficient, and that's all there was. There was no other, so I don't know if we even need to talk about the other 2 and 1. I don't have that in front of me anyways. So Dr. Crowley got all 4s and 3s, so an average of 3.5. For management operations, 3.4. For family and community engagement, 3.5. And professional culture, 3.4. So, do we want to go around now on those, or wait till the end? Just forgetting how we did it in the past. So then we have district goals. The goals, 1, 2, and 3. District goals, again, same categories, exemplary, proficient, 3.5. On the second is professional practice, 3.4. And student learning is 3.3. So again, those are the numbers that I did my calculations on. So if we'd like to go around.
I think there was an overall.
Oh. No, I didn't do that.
It's 3.
It's got to be 3 point, if my Kennedy math is right, I bet you it's 3.4 and a little bit more. Because you had more 3.5.
That's Kennedy math?
Well, I'd have to sit here and figure it out. But yeah, I'm sorry, John, I didn't know there was an overall.
3.4.
So overall would be, I would say don't quote me on this, 3.5 and some change. Because there's 1, 3, 3, a couple of 3, 4s, and mostly 3, 5s.
Yeah.
All right, there's your overall. So, do we want to go around, starting on my left, your right, with Mrs. Chisholm?
What do you want us to do?
If you want to. If people are interested in reading their little comment section. If not, we can move on.
Oh, I didn't even keep it.
I have it. But it's up to you. Is that the plan that people want to read? I was told that would be an option.
I have something to read, but if other people don't, that's fine.
Yeah, all right, whoever does, raise their hand.
Go first.
Go ahead. Oh, okay.
Save the best for last.
No. I don't in front of me either.
Do you have a comment about the length of my statement? So, this has obviously been a difficult and busy, I say period because we're sort of evaluating a little more than a year on this, but for the Woburn Public Schools, which makes any evaluation a complex task. As always, I think broad rankings hide a lot of detail, both in terms of things the superintendent and the team should be proud of and areas in need of improvement. I want to first and foremost commend the superintendent and through him, his team on their handling of the addition to our schools of dozens of new students who arrived to us as refugees over the summer. Rapidly and without much state support, Dr. Crowley and his staff created and implemented a plan for registration, transportation, staffing that both addressed the needs of new students and helped the district build structures of support that have benefited all of our students. That includes new staffing additions in our ML and family engagement departments. Dr. Crowley's commitment to student health and safety is also clear from his recognition as the recipient of the Patrick Shattini Memorial Award earlier this month. His continued DEI work in the district and his work to support and grow programs such as the joint Woburn-Burlington health screening and vaccination clinics. This has been a focus of the superintendent's planning, budgeting, and hiring, and I know will continue to be a focus moving forward. The creation and progress towards implementation of the district's new strategic plan is also notable here. The strategic plan, while dense and detailed, points us in the right direction as a district, developing individualized support for students regardless of need. In the coming evaluation cycle, I encourage the superintendent to focus on some of the areas where outcomes didn't always meet our needs. I'd like to see continued progress towards a consistent, inclusive, and empathetic approach to communication, both within our buildings and to the community at large. While I'm optimistic about progress that's been made here, this is an area where I'd like to see some dedicated and specific focus moving forward. This includes both the creation of and messaging about our budget and budgeting priorities. While I'm hopeful that changes at the city level may offer opportunities to engage in better forward planning and avoid surprises, I also encourage the superintendent and staff to work toward a budget process that allows us to showcase our student-centered approach and build a narrative that helps the public understand why we're focusing our time and resources in the places that we're focusing them. Finally, after a year and more of upheaval and change, there's an opportunity for the superintendent to assert clear and transparent leadership within the district, clarify administrative roles, and continue to build collaboration and trust with all stakeholders. And I look forward to continuing to work with Dr. Crowley to accomplish all the above and more.
Excellent.
I'll read mine.
All right.
I have it. I appreciate that each year that I've spent on this committee has been rife with issues that can make it difficult to do the work. Yet the district continues to be led by Dr. Crowley to the best of his ability to keep things afloat, and the 2022-2023 school year was no exception. I hope that as this year continues, we will see more empowerment, as defines exemplary in the rubric, along with professional growth and continued improvement in communication and staff relations on the part of Dr. Crowley. Short and sweet. Thank you.
Anything else?
I'll start with the areas that I found exemplary were the indicator develops and executes effective plan, procedures, and routines and operational systems to address a full range of safety and health, emotional, and social needs. I feel like the district under Dr. Crowley's leadership does a very good job at implementing new protocols. One example that's floating to the top is Ms. Ryan's engagement of I Love You Guys versus Alice training, which was clearly a move to develop a more child-centered approach to safety issues. The other thing is I think the district, under Dr. Crowley's leadership, does a great job at creating a shared vision of our budget. So when we're looking at the budget, we know why we're asking for things. And generally speaking, the budget does speak to children with the most vulnerable social statuses, and I feel like that's a strength. So, for instance, some superintendents and school committees will just, cut line items because they need to. But under Dr. Crowley's leadership, it's a very strategic, careful study of making sure that there's no cuts in one place. It's distributed among, or not cuts, but reductions in the superintendent's budget. The other area was the let me make sure I get this right. Oh, the influx of the McKinney-Vento eligible children. Clearly, there were systems immediately put in place that I didn't see in any other districts, and I work in a lot of districts where we had busing for families to come and register their kids, and I did not see that in a lot of places. Places where I think we need to improve, and I think this is school committee as well, is having more DEI-centered communication. And communication issues, two-way communications is always difficult. I think that is there's room for improvement. I don't think I actually came to needs improvement. And I think that's all I have for feedback, Mr. Chair.
Excellent. Mr. Moran?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess a lot of the words have already been spoken on behalf of Dr. Crowley's leadership. A lot of my points and remarks in there were under the proficient category, again, to Ms. Crowley pointing and some of the other members as well. A little bit of room for improvement, communications, budgeting. Obviously, we have a new mayor-elect coming up in January, so it's going to be, if you think last year was difficult, wait till this year hits us. So we'll see what happens this year for the budgetary things. So I kind of put a lot of proficient in there because exemplary just seems difficult to reach. I think it's, there's room for improvement in a lot of different areas that have been mentioned earlier tonight. So overall, exemplary, proficient would be, what my overall status would have been if we were doing the overall status evaluation category at that point.
I'm sorry, my overall was proficient as well. Thank you. I should have said that.
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Dr. Wells.
Yeah, my overall rating was exemplary. Seeing the difficulties we encountered as a school system the past year, seeing the superintendent navigate that, Also, I think, there was a lot of upper leadership change that occurred over the past year, and the superintendent was able to establish a strong leadership team, filling it out with some unexpected departures and so forth. So I truly appreciate that. I think the other thing I recognized is, we see him, at our meetings and our daily conversations, but to see his peers recognize his leadership, I think speaks highly of what he's doing, and the recognition that his peers gives him indicates to me that he is well respected outside of Woburn, and I think that's important because that shows that he's set an example for other superintendents that they're trying to live up to. I think there are areas of improvement, and I think the biggest area of improvement I would suggest both for the superintendent and the committee is to look at the budgeting process. I think we're setting ourselves up for failure when we come with a budget that we know is not realistic and use that as a starting point. I would suggest we go in the back end and start with a budget that meets the initial needs of our students and then look to add things rather than to start with a budget that has everything and take things away because we don't have the resources, because I think that makes people seem like we're taking things away from them that they don't have, as opposed to adding things to an already established budget that meets the needs of our student and add to it, not take away from it. Because that's ultimately what we're doing, but the way it comes across is we're taking things away from students, even though they never had them in the beginning. And, I know the superintendent and the administration, that's not their intent. The intent is always to build upon what we have, and that's what ultimately we do each year. So that's the biggest thing. And then the other thing I was just hope that we can have some stability in the senior leadership positions in the upcoming years. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Chisholm.
Okay, this past year has brought many challenges to our district. Superintendent Crowley has led WPS with a great amount of patience and the utmost level of professionalism. When he was faced with the unlawful strike, he communicated with staff, parents, and students with calmness and with a sincere understanding that there were many families struggling. He did this while spending countless amount of hours negotiating. Just recently, Superintendent Crowley received the Dr. Patrick Scanetti Award, being nominated by his fellow peers, which proves that he represents himself as well as WPS with a high level of knowledge, commitment, and dedication, and it is so appreciated, and mine was exemplary.
Excellent. I have mine as well. And I want to thank Mr. McNeil from the Kennedy for the math. It came to 3.43. So I was right. I said 3.4 and probably a little more.
And a little more. And a little bit more.
0.03. All right, so mine is, going to get my glasses here for this one. Having the unique opportunity to work with the superintendent during the contract negotiations, strike, and throughout the year as chair, I found Dr. Crowley exemplary in all areas. He stayed professional even through the most trying times, ran a school system while dealing with media requests and all that we saw this year. We got through it all, and that is because of the leadership and his team, which he chose. I feel Dr. Crowley does a great job, and given a normal year, I can't imagine his possibilities. Woburn is in great hands. That's it. So that is good. Do we need to do anything with that?
We can let the superintendent respond.
No. So you can respond.
I like your math, Chris.
I could just tell.
No, thank you for the feedback. It's been a challenging, not just year, it's been a challenging few years, but I think things are feeling a lot better, and I'm grateful for your support. So appreciate the feedback again, and
Thank you.
look, I hear you on the budgeting. I definitely, and I'm interested to engage in this process. And to your point, we do want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our kids. And one of the things, and we've talked about it, I'm riffing a little bit here, the needs have changed dramatically over the past couple of years. And so we talked about chronic absenteeism, but the number of ML students has skyrocketed. We're up near 14%, whereas it was 5% just a couple of years ago. Our special education population's up over 20%. It was 15% a couple of years ago. Our out-of-district numbers have skyrocketed. So as we enter into the budgeting process, trying to meet those needs will be a challenge for all of us. But looking forward to it, and thank you for your support.
Excellent. All right. As we move along to subcommittee reports, Finance Subcommittee.
Yes, the Finance Subcommittee met this evening, myself, Mrs. Chisholm, Mr. Lipset, Patty McKinnon, Jennifer, sorry, Judkins was there too, sorry. Yeah, I'm breaking up a little bit because this is my last Finance Subcommittee meeting because we decided we don't need one for the,
Oh,
in
if you
December.
want to have one,
No,
we
no,
will.
no, 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 I've already,
We can have a cake.
We don't want you to be sad.
We'll submit the receipts.
but we reviewed the list of bills, we found the list of bills to be in order, and I'll make a motion to approve the list of bills.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All set.
We also reviewed the balance of accounts. We found them to be in order. There are a couple of things that are going to be looked at to make sure that they're there, but in general, the balance of accounts is in order, so I'll make a motion to approve that.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And then we talked about a couple of issues. One, probably have the lunch program come before the committee in the new year, potentially, that determines how the committee wants to do it, maybe at the Finance Subcommittee or before the whole committee. They can talk about what they're doing, because there's going to be the contract's up for renewal next year, so it'll be important for the committee to have a view on what's happening with the lunch program and determining where to go for the future. That's also the case with the bus contract. And the other thing we talked about was, again, better aids for the committee to follow the budget and more visualization tools. And again, Ms. Judkins talked about some ideas she had. Obviously, will be introduced to the new budget director at the next meeting. But I think he'll be working on the same idea. The idea is that way the committee can have, at a glance, see where our spending's going in particular areas, salaries, special ed, energy, things like that. So, and with that, we adjourn.
So the real reason you're breaking up is because you're not able to be on the lunch subcommittee.
That's exactly
That's right,
what we
yes.
should
Do the samples.
Food
Yes.
sampling.
Yes,
Sampling.
I may have to be a community representative.
Well, thank
Member
you.
emeritus.
Thank you for all the years on finance and on the school committee. We'll see you one more time.
One more time.
One more time.
Communication Policy Subcommittee.
We have not met.
All right. Curriculum and Data Trends Subcommittee.
We have not met. I hope to try to schedule something before the new year.
All right. Personnel Subcommittee.
We have not met.
Okay. Resource and
Oh,
Capital.
yes.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
I provided the committee with my minutes, which are 9 pages long, but I also provided the committee with an executive summary of my minutes, so I'll just read those. So we met on November 28th at 4 p.m. The list of people there on my minutes, but it was me, Andrew Lipset, Dr. Matt Crowley, Courtney Young, Maureen Ryan, David Dunkley, Michael Concannon, President of the City Council, was an observer, but he was recognized. And we also had an observer in the audience of Rachel Kuberry. The Resources and Capital Subcommittee was convened for the purposes of deliberating the next steps with regards to the multitudinous information contained in the 2023 feasibility study of the buildings within the WPS. The subcommittee sought to hold a useful discussion with the administration and to provide action steps for the school committee. Overall, the school committee discussed ways in which we can create a transparent public process to ensure that there's immediate attention to the recommendations contained in the feasibility study. As we know, there are two veins: the urgent capital needs of the Woburn Public Schools, but also the future of the construction of school buildings for our entire school community. Actually, not the entire school community. As a reminder, there are 6 focuses and potential school building action plans. Could be in building a new school in North Woburn, building a new middle school with a combination of the Joyce and the Kennedy, renovating the middle schools and taking other action to create more space and enlarging certain class sizes within the middle school buildings, building a freestanding early childhood center, or just making urgent repairs and initiating a redistricting of school lines to address population growth. All of these are intertwined, independent on one another. All of them are expensive. The subcommittee recognized at this point President City Council Mayor-elect Michael Concannon, and we came up with the following action steps. The committee, so I guess what I'm asking for is informal discussion of the following items. One, to support a public forum, which will occur on December 11th, 2023 at 6 p.m. at Woburn High. This will be a presentation conducted by Donna Danisco. Donna Danisco is the person who created the feasibility study, and that will be open to the public. It will be recorded. It might even be translated. Will it? Maybe. But it will be recorded. So I'm asking for a vote on that, or no? Just maybe your discussion. For the committee to send a letter to President Michael Concanon as an official correspondence to convene a special joint meeting between the Woburn School Committee and the City Council for the purposes of a city-based presentation by Donna Danisco from Danisco Designs. The purpose of that is to create collaboration between the three branches of government, the Mayor's Office, the City Council, and the School Committee. This should occur in January 2024. We are asking, the Resources Subcommittee is asking for the School Committee support for the city to create a task force / working group created by the Mayor's Office, comprised of multiple stakeholders, to be created in January 2024. The purpose of the task force and working group is to synthesize the information contained in the feasibility study and come up with recommendations for the City Council, the Mayor's Office, and the School Committee with regards to school building issues. The purpose will have the vision, at least in the discussion of the Resources Subcommittee, is to have a diverse set of people that will sit down and discuss and synthesize the report. As for the old Wyman, it is at this point the Resources Subcommittee sort of recommendation to hold the old Wyman building and use it to maximize the leverage of the old building in terms of discussion as an asset when we think about building new schools. So Dr. Wells had asked, when are we going to get rid of the Wyman? And to get rid of the Wyman, if we declare that we no longer need it for a school building, then we pass it back to the city. At this point, the Resources Subcommittee believes that we should hold it and wait until the working group is established so that we can have a deeper discussion about how to maximize the value of the Wyman. Because it has both fiscal, sentimental, it's a major asset. Notwithstanding all of this, the Shamrock needs a new roof. So David Dunkley asked the school committee to prioritize the Shamrock roof that we need urgently because we are, quote, chasing leaks. That is the executive summary of the Resource Subcommittee that John's hand is already going up.
You think?
That ended at 5:30.
Okay, you all set?
Does anyone have any questions?
Dr. Wells?
Thank you. Yeah.
December 11th is the only.
Yeah. I'm a little confused about the idea about the
Wyman.
The old Wyman School, because it only exists in the school department domain as an educational building. We can't sell it, we can't do anything with it to create an asset. It's an asset to the city.
Yes.
And so to hold it as a asset doesn't make much sense, because it's not a bargaining, it's not like we can take it and see who gets the most, whether we get more money for it or negotiate with the city, because it's only in our domain as an educational facility. And if we've determined it is no longer suitable or needed for an educational facility, it should be turned over to the city, and then it's up to the city side to utilize the assets in the best interest of the city, which hopefully would be, to support the school system and the plan that we've done. But I think I don't understand necessarily the rationale behind holding it.
Through the chair to Dr. Wells, the rationale is that it's a major decision to turn over a building that we currently operate. So we want that decision to be considered alongside, integrated into the working group. That is why. It doesn't really matter. We're talking about a matter of 6 weeks, Dr. Wells, because the working group is going to start immediately, it's my understanding, in January, try to get that up and running. And one of the topics of that working group will be what to do, how to maximize the value of the Wyman in terms of a return of investment for the school buildings issue.
No, it doesn't.
And
So
it might
just-
seem
just
like
to-
a low.
Hang on, hang on.
hanging
Yeah,
fruit. That's
yeah.
the rationale.
Yeah, but that's not the
rationale.
domain of the school
Right.
department. That's the domain of the
City.
city. So, I don't say we have to make a decision tonight,
Right.
next meeting, but it should be done sooner rather than later, rather than trying to waste. I don't want the working group, because they're going to have a lot of things to do, to really or use time that's valuable to try to figure out how to maximize. That's up to the city. Let them decide how to maximize
The
it.
working group is to make recommendations to the school committee, to the city, and to the mayor's office.
Can
And
I-
John, you
Yeah.
don't have to argue
know.
with this. It's just
Well, no, I
minutes.
have to state my opinion.
Okay, but then it's just minutes.
Ms. Chisholm?
Well,
She had it up first.
some of it I do agree with John, because we're not getting anything in return for the Wyman. It's not going to profit us by any means. So the longer we hold on to it, we're paying for things to be done at that building. So I would just say, let's turn it over and get rid of it and just let the city deal with it. The Shamrock roof, I think that we just should send it down to the mayor's office and tell them we want it to go out to bid tomorrow if possible. I mean, this is what we have to do. It's crazy to wait and wait and wait for have that happen. And I just want to make sure that this working group, if the schools committee holds the power to do anything. So I don't want it all of a sudden to become, outside people that would not voted in and not to all of a sudden tell us what we should be doing at this table.
Yes.
I do think that the city council needs to be involved for the financial part, but again, this is our decision for the city. So I just don't want that to get lost in all these meetings and everything else. I do think that the city needs to be known. I think this presentation on the 11th is a good thing to happen so that taxpayers know we could have a $200 million debt out there. And they need to be aware of it, and I think the communication from them is good, but I don't want it to be taken from this table to anyone else to make decisions about our schools.
Mr. Lipson?
So just a couple of clarifying points on those, and not to step on Ms. Crowley's minutes at all, right? So in terms of the powers of the building committee, the discussion at the subcommittee focused on a building committee that would have the power to make recommendations, but ultimately, yes, decisions are made at this table, and then other decisions are made at the city council, right? So the building committee is empowered only to make recommendations, not to take direct action. And the school committee obviously would retain its power to either accept those recommendations, modify them, reject them.
And I just don't want committees to meet, and then spend all this time meeting, and then come back and say, now we're not going to do that. And then have people get really frustrated because they put in a lot of hours, and we're not going to go with what they come down with.
Yeah, I mean, I think the rationale behind a separate committee is that, first of all, we do want to make sure that we're collaborating on this with the
Right.
city council.
It's
That
a
is
lot of money.
incredibly important. We also want to make sure that we have public voices. So, not necessarily people who are sitting around this table, not necessarily people who are sitting around in the city council room, but other stakeholders throughout the community. We can reach out to the Woburn Business Association. We can reach out to the Woburn Teachers Association. Make sure that people who have a say in our buildings, make sure that people who have, skin in this game can participate with us in sort of developing the vision, right? But yes, ultimately, they make recommendations, we take action, right? Regarding the old Wyman, I do want to say, the discussion at the subcommittee, I think, really focused on, I think President Concanon added a lot to this discussion as well, in the idea that we haven't, I think, really determined fully, and not to his satisfaction as well, whether or not we can fully declare the Wyman a lost cause in terms of its use for us. We are currently using it, for example, for storage, where there are opportunities and some flexibility with the building that we have to explore. So I think the determination was really, we don't necessarily want to leave those stones unturned before we make a final determination. And that's part of the discussion and part of the thinking in terms of what we're doing with the Wyman and holding it for that committee, so that the committee can really sort of look at that and see whether it fits in any meaningful way to some of these options that are presented to us. That was my understanding of that discussion.
Through the chair. And maybe, I haven't gone through the multitude of documents like subcommittee, but it seemed to me they were pretty clear that it was not of value for an educational facility. So it's sort of not making a decision, having a report and then ignoring the report by delaying. That's all.
Yeah.
But again, is what it is.
School meeting.
What are the next steps for the December 11th forum? Ms. Crowley, through the chair. Who would set that up?
It's all set up.
It is?
Yes.
Okay.
What time is it?
So Donna Danisco is doing a public presentation of the feasibility study in a very, we got some feedback from the community members at the meeting, that we were trying to make it more accessible, more visually appealing than the school committee presentation, but that it's already a done deal. She answered the email during the meeting, December 11th, 6 p.m. at the Woburn High School.
So, through the chair, I think what Ms. Cormier is asking is who's in charge of the meeting?
I just didn't know if it was officially set.
Yeah, no, it's
Because there were
Danisco.
questions in the.
But
We
I think
are doing it with Donna Danisco.
Then we're going to make an official school committee meeting, or, that's the question.
No,
So,
it is a
yeah.
public forum.
But I think it's sort of a technicality, like, it might be best if it said, like, the superintendent is doing a report presentation, because that way, all the members can be there if they want to, and we don't have to declare it as a meeting. Same thing with the council, as opposed to, if we're saying it's a school committee meeting,
It's a presentation.
and then, we have to set an agenda, all that stuff.
It's not a school committee meeting, so I guess it's a administration meeting. It's a public,
It's a public
Public
meeting hosted by the superintendent to
Yes.
unveil the
there we go.
the plan.
And just through the chair
Six.
to Dr. Wells, I mean, this also came up in discussion, and that's why this is done as a presentation and
Right.
not as a Q&A. There's no
Yeah.
discussion. This is akin to any presentation that the school department might put on,
Right.
which doesn't need our approval, doesn't need
Yep.
public posting.
So I guess the action of the school committee is to simply make the public aware,
Right.
your
Yeah.
constituents, of what that's going on.
So I support that. I guess is the
Great.
end of my question.
And so it's the forum, the joint meeting, and then our future chair of the school committee might appoint somebody to be on the working group of the task force to hold the interests of the school committee in those discussions.
So who creates the task force?
The mayor. It's my understanding, we were sort of going over the mechanics of that,
Yeah.
but it would appear to be a mayor-created meeting with some official recognition by the city council, some sort of ad hoc working group task force that will have, they certainly won't have binding decision-making, but they'll have they'll be making recommendations. But the school committee will ultimately be the deciders of our realm.
That's the 11th at the high school at 6 o'clock.
I'll think on that.
Yes,
On the December
that's
11th.
correct.
And then the next night is our regular school committee meeting, 7 p.m.
And we're going to, just to clarify, we hopefully will be reaching out to the Woburn Public Media Center to be able to live stream it, or at least record it, so that it can be, because, obviously, we're cognizant of the fact that this is a busy month, and it's a busy time of month. And so making sure that even if the public isn't able to attend that night, that it is accessible through recording or through live streaming, so that everyone can see it, even if they're not able to attend.
And, if it's the committee's will to bring the Wyman to the table, I didn't mean to be annoyed. It certainly it's a valid suggestion. So if that's the will of the committee, then, we can certainly talk to the chair. I don't have strong feelings about it. It just made sense at the time to, hold it until there's more discussion, fruitful discussion about the future. But I did not mean to be annoyed with you, Dr.
Mr. Moran.
Sorry.
Thank you. I
This
guess,
is a natural response.
One last time.
He's used to it. This is how it's going down.
I will separate you two right now. I guess the
Fellow man up there in
transparency of this
graduates
is
do not get upset.
wonderful, and as Mr. Lips has said, the timing is off. It's just Danisco, we've heard of this feasibility study, we've heard of plans, we've heard of ideas. It's just a way of getting it out there on the 11th. A. B, the Wyman School, each and every year, those of us sitting here tonight, we go through the budget, the Wyman School. Well, we need it for this, we need it for that. It's not education, but we need it. It's going to come back up at budget time, deal with it at budget time. If it's, time to give it back, give it over to the city, so be it. The Shamrock, I'm concerned with, obviously, resources through David is, pushing that. we really can hold off too much longer. I'm sure it's going to start snowing, it's going to start raining. In New England, we have these flat roofs on schools again for some reason, but I just wanted to make sure that December 11th, 6 o'clock is a presentation. It's just a presentation, no questions, answers, nothing's going to be determined that evening. It's just, this is where we're at as of December 2023, moving down the road. We're going to establish committees and get people involved and be transparent as we can to all the agencies involved. So I think it's a good point that came out of, your resource group. There's a lot of material in there. There's a lot, just those 6 topics that you brought up. There could be some people sitting here tonight that, just want to throw things off right away. So I think it's good to sit on it for a bit. There you have it. Hear the presentation on the 11th and move on for next year. But I appreciate the efforts of that resource committee with the NISCO firm. Thank you.
Excellent. Anyone else? Ms. Cormier?
That reminded me, so our next step for the Shamrock is do we need to vote to direct the superintendent to ask the mayor or for money?
That was going to be my question.
Yes.
Through the chair, the question, presumably it's, I just don't know what the timing is, whether to put it as a capital improvement for next year, because.
That's in her minutes.
Huh?
It's in her minutes.
Yeah.
There was a discussion about doing it in the summertime to not interrupt learning, and then
Right.
what to do with ESY.
Mr. Dunkley had requested to put it up to bid. Is that the right word to use?
Yeah.
Specs?
Yep.
Yes.
Like
Specs.
sooner rather than later.
Yeah, sooner
Yeah.
rather than later,
Yeah.
because the ideal time to fix the roof would be during the summer, which prompted, of course, a discussion from Ms. Ryan and Ms. Young about how to
Summer
do it
program.
safely with the summer programming, but that's above our pay grade. But it was very clear that this is the number one capital thing that needs to be addressed first.
But it just raises the question, if this is I assume it didn't happen as the number one capital improvement thing like last week, but why wasn't it on our capital improvement list for last year?
I don't have it in front of me.
I don't, but
could've
anyway,
His
you know,
point was
we
it's
can always
25
approach
years
them.
old. His point was it's 25 years old and it's met its life expectancy.
I know, but,
That's-
because you'd like to do these things in an orderly manner. That's my only issue,
I'm going to assume that it was on the capital improvement plan that he
Yeah,
brings to
somewhere
us
in
every
there.
year. But I shouldn't make that assumption.
But anyway.
So I'd like to make a motion that we request that the superintendent and perhaps Mr. Dunkley convene with the mayor, if he's amenable, to discuss financing a new roof at the Shamrock as soon as possible.
Second.
A motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
And the projected costs, FYI, it was between 800 and 1.9. There were various, that was the range. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, so good with resources?
Yes.
Yeah, all set?
Unless you want more.
No. No, we're good.
You can read us the 9 pages.
Yeah, read all 9
Waited
pages.
a long time to get that, to have that meeting.
Student Services and Achievement Subcommittee.
We have not met. There is a meeting scheduled for Friday morning here at the superintendent's conference room, Friday at 10.
All right, any correspondences at all? I did, before I forget, because I'll forget, I did get, related to the Kennedy Middle School, of course, a few more emails. They are still on record, but obviously it passed, so no reason to go over them.
I just wanted to mention the gun violence vigil at the Methodist Church on Sunday the 3rd at 4 p.m. and it is indoors. Apparently there was a typo in the paper. It is Sunday, it is indoors, and it is at 4 p.m.
Okay,
United Methodist Church.
nice, thank you. Anything else?
Sunday the 3rd.
Correspondence, yes.
I just came in tonight. The Shamrock School was on Good Morning America today
Oh, that's right.
as part of the Change is Simple initiative about environmental change, so I will forward the committee the link. I didn't have an opportunity to see it, but we made national news.
Yay.
today.
There you go.
Nice.
For good things.
Yeah, that's the 3rd.
Any other correspondence? Future agenda items?
Chairman. I think, in light of the discussion about absenteeism and things like that, it might be useful, and I don't know, the chair and the superintendent can decide whether it's better to go to a subcommittee, but the truant officers, and really looking at that whole program, is that really meeting the needs of our students in terms of what's happening and so forth. So, it'd be good for them to report, but also to evaluate, is this the best system for helping with absenteeism?
Okay. Talked about that. We got one more meeting left. Any other future agenda items? No? All right, we are going into executive session to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions